Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this session, we're going to continue our saga of the Ozone 8 plugin suite. But in this session, we're going to check out the Vintage EQ module and see what it can do for us. So obviously the Ozone 8 plugin suite has some very detailed technical digital-based plugins, modules, and lots of advanced tools. Now, the Vintage series of modules, and this one specifically, the EQ, is obviously based around more emulating analog hardware, some vintage hardware-based appliances, and in this case here, the EQ is based on the Pultec EQs there. So it's the low-end one and the mid-range one, and it should give us all the features of the Pultec EQs and all the little tricks and the low-end trick and all of that sort of stuff. So we'll see what it can do for us and whether it's of any value to us in our mixes. So let's get into it and check it out. All right, so here is the Ozone 8 interface as I've shown in other videos. And again, I'm showing you the full product suite here with just the Vintage EQ module loaded. Again, because I have the advanced version, I could load this plugin individually without loading the whole thing. But just for consistency, I'm showing you the whole thing here so you know what it looks like. So as with all the other modules, we can obviously remove it, add ones. We can move it around if we had different modules. We can bypass the module, enable it. We could solo it, and we can load some presets. Now, the interface itself obviously doesn't look much like the Pultec EQ hardware from a design point of view, but and obviously you can get lots of emulators out there that even have the look and the style of it. But if you can get past that, the functions themselves are pretty much identical. You know, the little controls here are all doing the same functions and everything like that. But the big advantage, obviously, with this plugin here is that they provide the option to run this in stereo, mid-side, or left and right mode, which is pretty hard to do with the actual Pultec hardware, and it's also not something that generally is available in most of the emulation plugins either. So as with the other emulations and hardware, we have it broken up into sections here. So we have a low end here, and this is a shelf, and the trick with this one is that we can boost it and we can also cut it at the same time. And this is how you can get that famous Pultec low end trick where you boost and cut the same time, but because of the variance in the slope of the shelf between the cut and the boost, it does some nice trickery there where you get a nice bass boost, but you don't get any sort of mud and annoying frequencies in there. So we can try that out on here as well. Check it out. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with this one is that this is the two sections combined. So generally these plugins can be split into two, and in this one here, we've got them together. But if we imagine these are two different modules between this line, that's what we have on these actual hardware units themselves. Okay, so in this high range here, this is actually they call it a peak type EQ, or a peaking filter, but you know, it's a lot of people know it as a bell shaped or something like that. So we can obviously go from 3K up to 16, and you can see they're obviously hard and fast frequencies here. You can't sort of vary in between. And you've got your boost there, so that's just your dB increase, and then you've got your Q, which is your bandwidth, your width of the actual bell shape. So this is a high cut or high shelf filter they're referring it to. We can set it to 20, 10 or 5, and the amount of dBs is the cut. Now you can obviously see that we get a nice little representation of the waveform as well. So you'll be able to see what it's actually doing. Okay, now down here we've got the low mid. So, another set of frequencies here. And we've got a bit of a boost. So all the sections on the bottom here are, as they refer to, peaking filters again, or bell-shaped EQs. So this one here, as I said, is a low mid-range, so you can see the frequencies there, and we can boost that section. Over here, we've got some high mids again, another set of frequency ranges, and again, we can do a boost there. And this one here is an interesting one because you've got all of these frequencies here, but all you've got is a cut function. So you can't do any boost there. But with all of these combined, you've got some great sort of power there and flexibility because this covers pretty much all the frequencies there. So to give you an idea of the shape, so, for instance, we'll come back to this one, but you can see here, if we do a boost, you can see the line, what it's sort of looking like there, and you can move it around to the different frequencies. And obviously the cut, we could move that around as well. And then our boost up here as well. So now in this section here, I showed this before, that's our filter there. So it's sort of a shelf cut. So you can go all the way down to 5K or all the way up to 20. And then our mid boost here, you can see, so we're sitting at 8K. Our Q's very wide there, so it's very broad, but we can sharpen that Q. It's still very broad though. And we can move that around to anywhere we want. But it's a very gentle Q, even at full range there. So it's not like a surgical EQ or anything like that. And then our low end here, so if we set that to 60, so you can see if we do a boost, we get a bit of a shelf there, which sort of varies the slope as you increase it. And if we just did a cut, same thing. But the little trick here, so if you do the boost and you do a cut, what you end up with is this, and this is how you get this Pultec low end trick. So you're boosting these frequencies here. So say your kick is sitting around here. You're getting a nice boost on the kick, but then generally at this spot here, you would find there's probably a bit of mud in your kick or your bass. So having this cut here is also reducing that. So if you take it away, you can see it's boosted in that spot there. So you're going to be adding some mud as well as the nice thump. But if you put this cut in, you get rid of that mud that it was adding by cutting it out and just getting that nice boost there. And obviously you can apply that to any of the frequency ranges there, all the way down to 20 Hertz. So it's a pretty simple layout, pretty simple plugin. As I said, we can do it mid-side or left and right. So let's just start it in stereo. I've got a song here, and let's just sweep through the frequencies just so you get a feel for what it sounds like on an entire song. All right, so as probably the most interesting part of this is going to be to do this little trick. So let's fire this up. What I'll do is I'll add the boost in, and you can have a nice listen to that with the extra little bit of mud added in there, and then I'll bring the cut in, and then we can compare the two. Obviously exaggerating it here. Hear that muddy range that's added in there where you're boosting that thumb. And that cleans it up nicely. Still getting that extra thumb. Okay, so obviously we can go over to mid-side mode here, and we could be doing various things on the mid. So for instance here we could solo the mid. So that's not affecting the sides at all. Go over the side, we could add boost. So now I've just added a bit of low end and a little bit of sort of low mids to the mid section there, and just added a bit of top end to the side section. So take away that boost on the sides. Take away the mid boost. So the advantage of that is we're adding a little bit of top end to the sides. We're not adding anything extra to the mids in the top end there. So that can widen the mix out a little bit, add a little bit of extra sheen onto the side of the mix. And the boosting of the low end and the low mids here only in the mids means that we're not adding extra low end on the sides, which is generally not a preferred thing either. We like to keep a low end mainly into the center and not getting out to the sides. Now you can do the same thing on the left and right here. This is generally not a feature I use very often. The only reason I would use this is if I was, say, mastering or something like that, and I found that the mix that I was given was not quite balanced EQ-wise on the left and right side, and I just needed to tackle something to get it a bit more balanced in the left or right, but it's not something I use very often, to be honest. So you can hear, because I switched it over to what I had before, I've got what was on the sides before now in the right with that top end boost, and in the left I've got this low end boost. So if you're actually listening, especially on headphones, you can hear it's really out of balance now. As I take it away, it becomes balanced again. So if you had an annoying cymbal or something that was just overpowering in one side or the other, you could come in here and do a little bit of a cut or something in a particular frequency to control a cymbal or something. But as I said, it's not something I use very often in that case there. And even mid-side, it doesn't get used too often. Mainly, you're working in stereo, but mid-side is definitely a lot more popular than doing left and right there. So there you go. There's the Vintage EQ module in iZotope Ozone 8. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know whether you think it's worth using and whether it gives you the sound of what you imagine the Pultec EQ hardware would give you in reality if you had the actual hardware unit. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Check out the other videos, especially all the other modules and all the other components of iZotope Ozone 8. And hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.